I will start on my right, and we have Deputy Mayor. We have Deputy Mayor Dave Thompson, Councillor Lynn Timmers, Councillor Tony Brunet. To my left, we have Councillor Wayne McMillan and Councillor John Pachurita. This evening, we have regrets from Councillor McPherson and Councillor Foster, and also Councillor Njima, and we send our sympathies to Diane and her family on the very recent death of her mother. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest? There being none, do any members have changes to the agenda as it was published? There being none, we'll move on then to the adoption of the previous minutes. And we are looking now at the minutes of June 18th, council minutes of June 18th, 2018. And I have a motion. Just one moment. Yes, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Thompson that the minutes of the June 18th, 2018 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any errors or omissions? There being none, your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. And councillors, is there any business arising from the minutes? There being none, we'll move on then to the mayor's report. Ladies and gentlemen, since our last council meeting on June 18th, we've ushered in a new provincial government, and I have attended an orientation on government priorities and the new way that we can expect to be doing business. This evening we have our Member of Provincial Parliament, Sam Oosterhoff, with us, and he will be speaking with us a little bit later. I want to remind you that throughout this process and into the future, that you can expect this council will work with all parties at all levels. And we are very pleased that Sam is here this evening to share some of his priorities, hopefully, and those things that he is working on our behalf. Canada Day was celebrated on Sunday, on the glorious 1st. We're very proud to be Canadians, particularly at this time when there is so much controversy that surrounds us. Issues of tolerance and inclusiveness, freedom of choice and participation, these are things that we feel need to receive a great deal of attention in our community. We've also celebrated a variety of business initiatives over the last couple of weeks. And through the leadership of Stephanie Hicks, who is the Executive Director of the Beamsville Business Improvement Association, the Barrels and Bloom Initiative, which was recognized at the provincial level as a flagship event for Garden Days, was celebrated in our town. It was a great time. Stephanie did a wonderful job involving the wineries to provide the barrels, Beamsville District Secondary School. Art class, of course, provided all of the artwork, and also the horticulture class provided all of the beautiful plants that are now growing so well on top of the barrels. And everyone is stopping and taking photographs, and it is creating a nice feel in downtown Beamsville. We hope that this type of business organization will start to evolve in other parts of the community. Certainly there is a Jordan Business Association. We hope that one day there will be a business improvement area in Vineland as well. This past weekend was the opening of Bench Brewery. And of course, this was such a long time coming. And one of the most important things about this venture is that we actually were able to preserve the Maple Grove School, and it's now part and parcel of this very vibrant business. Of course, Bench Brewery is another one of those examples that demonstrates our open for business policy. In Jordan and in Beamsville, the Lions Clubs finished up their year. 2 long-serving service clubs within our community. They certainly have left a tremendous legacy with the parks, and these are a constant hub of activity. It doesn't matter when you go throughout the summer, whether it's sports or the swimming pools. These are very important contributions to our community. I want to remind you that on July 17th and then again on August the 22nd from 6 to 9 p.m., there's going to be a workshop at the Fleming Center, and I think a lot of young people, you will be interested as well. And we are seeking input on plans for the skate park, the bike playgrounds, and also bike pump. And we want to thank the youth in Lincoln for keeping this project alive and raising small funds, particularly the work and participation of Trevor Donegan and his friends. The region is looking for your input in regard to Shape Niagara. This is a strategic planning exercise that is ongoing, and if you weren't able to get to the Fleming Center last week, please go to www.niagararegion.ca and participate in the questionnaire. This is a strategic planning exercise from 2019 to 2022. It's really your response to what the region should focus on, as well as what the region should look like in 10 years. And ladies and gentlemen, at this time, as I always remind you, remember that you live in Lincoln, where everyone strives to be a good neighbor, and where children are encouraged to achieve their very best. At the beginning of each meeting, through the Mayor's message, I reinforce Lincoln as a place to grow, a place to prosper, and a place to belong. Tolerance and inclusiveness are operative words that are attached to a sense of belonging. This is the way we do it here. It is my pleasure to serve you. On behalf of Council, thank you for welcoming us into your homes. There is no regional councillor present this evening. And we'll move on now to members of council. Do you have items to report? I'll start with you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just a few little things to report. Certainly attended a NPEI board meeting a week ago Monday. It was a governance board meeting. Was at the Bench Brewery pre-opening and then opening, and I'm still very excited about them opening up, and I was glad to see every time I passed by this weekend the cars were just packed in there and the people were enjoying themselves, and we had some excellent weather for sampling some new beers. So that was I was very excited. I'm really pleased with how Matt has incorporated Maple Grove School into the brewery, and certainly Matt and his staff showed off their best and now belong to our community and are a part of our community, not just have a business within our community. And also Canada Day celebrations, it was a scorcher. There weren't as many people as normal for the opening, and obviously thanks to Councillor Pachariva for sweating it out all day, doing his infamous or famous monologues and introductions. So anyway, it was a great day. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Yes, he is the best, and that's why he's there every year. And also, a great shout out to the staff who were there for the duration right up until, I guess, 10 o'clock at night. So we'll hear more about that. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mary Easton. Yes, I was at the Barrels in Bloom, the provincial flagship project. It's just fabulous. Such a partnership of so many different businesses and wineries, and of course the high school coming together. And I don't know if you've seen the barrels, but they're really beautiful. Very exciting. I was really thrilled to see them on the downtown. I was also at the Bench Brewery opening, and I have to echo a lot of the same comments. Fabulous building, Maple Grove preserved, Within the kitchen, there's actually a wall with handprints from some of the students that were at Maple Grove, and I was really excited to see those handprints there, because when my boys attended, they had done handprints on the walls and in the building and on the shed on the outside as well. So really, really nice touch. Like, they've really embraced the community for sure. And Matt Giffen is just fabulous for really honoring that school. Looking forward to seeing St. Helens as well down the road. I was also, June 20th, I attended the TVTA AGM, and I had the pleasure of meeting Erin Thompson, and Erin Thompson is the brand-new Executive Director for the 20 Valley Tourism Association. She'll be starting her position tomorrow. I was also, June 23rd, I was at the Active Transportation / Bring Your Own Bike event at the arena, at the Fleming Center in the arena on the floor, and Farmers Market was there. Huge crowd. The pump track was extremely popular, really a fun day. So anyway, thank you.
Councillor Brunet. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Just very quickly, I wanted to report on a meeting I attended last Wednesday, June the 27th, up at the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. That's the Community Advisory Committee that I represent this council on. So it was a very exciting meeting. Obviously, like I mentioned, Wednesday, June 27th, it was 2 days, 48 hours before the Ford cabinet was being announced. So there was lots of conjecture on what the cabinet was going to be, and I can certainly tell you that Aaron Levoy was bang on when he thought that perhaps Christine Elliott would be the deputy Premier and the Minister of Health. So we certainly had a great meeting. Some of the topics that we talked about that evening that were on the agenda, some of them I can elaborate on more than others at this point. But we had discussions with regards to, obviously, from a communications and public relations standpoint, what the first 100 days will look like with the new Ford government, and how Hamilton Health Sciences needs to put a plan together to talk about how we move forward with the West Lincoln Hospital, as many have been waiting many years for this new hospital. So that was a discussion point in terms of communications and public relations and the next 100 days in the new government. We talked about the site update, and I will elaborate specifically on that. So in 2016, the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital received an infrastructure grant, and they put out a tender for $5.4 million that closed. Unfortunately, there was only one bidder. The project was deemed to be too big for the small contractors and too small for the big contractors. So luckily, the Ministry of Health gave Hamilton Health Sciences the approval to put out a retender, and that took place late this winter. Unfortunately, the tender results came in, and it's just under $8 million, which the feeling is there'll be no problem to proceed with that through the ministry. But unfortunately, the Hamilton Health Sciences did not get the approval before the writ came down in the election. So there will be some delays now with the new cabinet and with the municipal election taking place in the fall. So the thought process is there'll be an approval late this fall or early in 2019 to proceed with an $8 million update for infrastructure improvements at the West Lincoln Hospital. Just very quickly, I will, for those watching at home, talk about what some of these upgrades include. Again, it's an $8 million project. Upgrades to the following critical building systems: emergency generators, fire alarm systems, nurse call stations, elevator upgrades, replacing the cooling tower, replacing the chiller water system, replacement of existing air handling units in obstetrics, pharmacy, Ward B, replacing the boiler, which is an old steam unit, replacing all inefficient fixtures, replacing the water distribution system, complete electrical upgrade, including a main switch gear, and upgrade of all lighting fixtures throughout the hospital. So it's an $8 million project, one which is desperately needed to continue the sustainability of the West Lincoln Hospital as it exists now. There were some other discussions with regards to some recent activities that I'm not in a position to report on this evening, but I will upgrade at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there may be some more discussion a little bit later on that. Thank you very much, Councillor Brunet. And I understand there's going to be, we're expecting, the mayors are expecting something in writing as a result of that meeting. Would that be correct?
Yes, Mayor Easton, there was discussion about that and how the 3 West Lincoln mayors are obviously not happy with the way things are developing, and there was some discussion that certainly with the upcoming AMO convention in Ottawa, that certainly a delegation and a meeting with our Member of Parliament, Mr. Oosterhoff, and the new Health Minister, Christine Elliott, would be very, very important sooner than later. So yes, there was a number of discussions, and I would expect that there'll be some correspondence coming from Halton Health Sciences and the board.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. Councillor McMillan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As been reported so far by the other councillors, I too attended the Canada Day celebration. Blistering hot, but it didn't seem to curb the enthusiasm of the crowd that was there, even though it was a smaller crowd than usual. And also the opening of the Bench Brewery, and it's been talked about the relative to Maple Grove School and how that has been incorporated. And as councillors will recall that some time back, Cuesta, the owners of that property, made a commitment to this town that they were going to preserve the heritage elements of the Maple Grove School, and they certainly have done that. They have lived up to and honored that commitment. But there is another heritage building on the same site, and Cuesta has plans to develop that piece of property as well. And I would assume that the same commitment will come from them when it comes to St. Helens Church. And then we have the Maple Grove School and St. Helens Church on that site, and they're going to be high priorities for designation by the next Heritage Committee and by the next council. And very, very pleased with what I saw, and very happy that they did live up to that commitment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Pachuriva.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. A number of events, and a lot of mine focused on youth this time. We had our active transportation planning meeting on June 21st in preparation for the inaugural cycling event on June 23rd. It was a fantastic event. Bike rodeo, the pump track was absolutely awesome. There was a lineup for that. Yoga for cyclists, the bike clinic, there was the Blender Bike smoothies and the pump track, and then our active transportation committee did guided community rides. We did those every hour on the half hour. We got some great photographs. Brian Jaworski, one of our committee members, was there fixing bikes, repairing bikes, making sure seats and handlebars were at the proper height. So he was just in his element. And then he was our roving photographer on our journey. And the last ride we took was the penultimate, because we had a young lad on a scooter. We had a gal on a bicycle with training wheels. We had a couple other kids on bikes, bunch of adults and parents, and it was fantastic. And that's going to be our backdrop for our poster next year, that every form of wheeled transit is going to be a part of this. Just a special shout out to Sarah Ain, our Acting Associate Director of Community Services, for having the foresight to pull it inside in case of inclement weather, and incorporated it with the farmers market. It was a winner. Following day, I attended the inaugural Sparkle Fest along with yourself and acting our Deputy Mayor Thompson, who was there a lot of the day. It was fantastic. It was a kickoff to the TD Jazz Festival in Niagara, but it had a youth component, and the youth that were present were amazing. If you closed your eyes, you thought you were listening to seasoned professionals, and it was, in spite of the weather, there was a steady turnout. So it was just an excellent day. Our Active Transportation Committee had its follow-up and debrief last Thursday, Committee is full of vim and vigor. We want to do the bike event next year. We want to make it bigger. They're shooting for 2 events in June, so I'm going to go and talk to the Niagara Regional Police and get out in front of this. And then, last but certainly not least, was Canada Day on July 1st at Charles Daly Park. Had the pleasure of being MC for the day, picking up the cake, bringing it there. It was hot. But you know what? By about 9:30, the crowds were where they usually are, and the fireworks were outstanding. The bands, and another, bouquet to Laurie Laird and the rest of the SRC group. Again, the talent that was there that day, I think, was second to none. There was a 17-year-old boy there, Riley Michaels. It was shocking, the voice this kid has. It was amazing. He was fantastic. And you know what? And I did it. I said to the people here, you know what? You guys are listening to something special, and make sure you go to the streaming platforms and download this fella's music, because he can sing anything. And then Off the Record was there, the talent search group that we had last year. They followed it up with an outstanding performance. Anyone that can mix in a little bit of the Black Keys and the Beatles, they're all right by me. And last but not least, I mean, our very own Jonesy. Like,
Always.
Up the hook. So it was a fantastic day. The people that were there were treated to some top-notch entertainment, food, and of course, fireworks. And then all of the other, the jumpy castles were, in spite of the hot weather, were, a go-to, along with the camp staff, who were troopers doing face painting and tattoos. And I almost got one, but maybe next year.
Well, I don't know, Counselor. My mother, who's 96 years old, she was all dolled up like Wonder Woman. You could have been her partner. Thank you very much, Counselor. And ladies and gentlemen, I also want to recognize you. You've heard a number of events that have taken place in our community, and some of them, of course, require the organization of staff. On my left is Michael Kirkopoulos, the Chief Administrative Officer. On my right is Julie Kirkolos, the Director of Corporate Services and Town Clerk. And we have Paul Deaney, the Senior our Economic Development Officer in the side table, along with Sarah Ain, the Acting Associate Director of Recreation Culture. And we couldn't do without the staff to produce the quality of events that we have in Lincoln. So thank you all very, very much. And the summer is just beginning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to welcome and to introduce our Member of Provincial Parliament, Sam Oosterhoff, also Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Education. Sam's sitting at the delegation table this evening, but he's not really here as a delegation. He's just here for us to have a friendly conversation with him so that we can just get a sense of what his priorities are. And I'm going to let Sam, if you wouldn't just have a few words. We're not going to worry about a time limit, and then we'll see if there's any questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me, and I do want to acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe First Nations, Mississaugas of the New Credit, as well as the Mohawks of the Grand River, just out of respect for their lands. Also, I want to thank you for inviting me into your legislative chambers and into really your realm. And as a member of the provincial legislature, having worked in federal politics, I know how incredibly important it is, the work that you do at the municipal level, really where the rubber hits the road, where day in and day out you see the impact of government policies from higher levels of government that come down to your local municipality. And that either has a very positive or a very negative impact, depending on, of course, which type of legislation is being brought forward and what type of government is in place. I do have a list of notes, but I'm going to be speaking mostly extemporaneously this evening. As mentioned by the mayor, I hope to have more of perhaps a conversation than a monologue. I, since being elected in 2016, have done my best to have a consultative form of leadership, one where I believe it's important to hear from all sectors of our society, all people in our community, and of course recognize the various contributions that are made in the diversity that we experience here in the Niagara area. Although I was first elected as the member for Niagara West Glanbrook, which contained the portion of the portion of Hamilton that was east of Hamilton Mountain. The current riding of Niagara West is exclusively portions of Niagara, so part of St. Catharines, Waynfleet, Lincoln, West Lincoln, and Grimsby. So it's obviously a little bit of a different dynamic for my representation, speaking less about some of the Hamilton area issues that took up a chunk of my time there, and now I can really focus not exclusively on Niagara. I think it's important to recognize the holistic whole that we have here in this corridor, but also to make sure I'm really speaking as the only government representative for the Niagara region, being able to advocate for some of those issues. Now, I think here in Lincoln particularly, I want to commend you for your strong growth-oriented approach. I've heard from a lot of people, whether that's French Brewery, which is a prime example of an expanding business here in the area. Actually, I invited Steve Paikin from TVO to come down to Niagara and tour it. He's saying that he's boycotting the U.S. this year due to the tariff, so I invited him to come participate in some of the excellent agri-food businesses that we have here in Lincoln particularly. But really our whole area and the whole region has a lot to offer, and there's a lot of potential here in the Niagara region, and one that I hope we have the opportunity to grow and develop and tap into over the course of the next 4 years. Let me first of all be very blunt about the fact that as someone who grew up pretty much exclusively under provincial Liberal government, 15 of my 20 years were spent under a Liberal government. I can't remember Mike Harris. It's been disappointing for me to see the fiscal state of our province decline as we moved from a have province into a have-not province. And one of the major reasons I got involved in politics was to make a difference when it comes to opportunity for young people, opportunity for people to get ahead, and making life more affordable for everyday Ontarians, everyday Canadians who might be struggling to make ends meet. And that means, quite frankly, it's fair to say that after 15 years of the Liberal government, there has been a lot of waste, a lot of mismanagement, and it is going to be a lot of work to clean up that mess. It is going to be a lot of hard work. It's going to be a lot of careful consideration and value propositions. We're going to be making sure that we have a value for money audit that comes out. That's one of the first lines of business that our government has committed to. We recently, today actually, pulled out of the cap and trade program, which I believe was a good move to reduce the burden on taxpayers' pockets, which cap and trade didn't have any impact on climate change. It didn't have any impact on reductions at the rate that it was set. So to me, it was a bit of a cash grab, and our government is doing our best then to recognize the reduction in government revenues that resulted from the cancellation of the cap and trade program, and making sure when we are spending taxpayer dollars, we're doing so in as efficient and effective way as possible. And that will obviously have an impact as well on collaborations with municipalities and regions, making sure that when regions and municipalities are approaching the province for funds, that there's value for money proposition there that's solid and substantial. I've been very clear about my priorities here in the area. The day after I was elected on June 7th, June 8th, I sat and penned a letter to then Premier-designate Ford outlining what I felt were some of the main priorities here in the area. Now, I'm sure I know some of you were at various all candidates debate or all candidates meetings that were held throughout the course of the provincial election, so you would know a bit about where I'm coming from. But in that letter, I really, touching on what Councillor Brunet spoke about, my top priority is the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. It has been far too long. Multiple governments have done, of quite frankly, all political stripes, have done far too little with it, have ignored it, pushed it under the carpet, whether that's PC, Liberal, NDP, you name it. We've been in this community fighting for it for many years. And I think this is a real opportunity that we have in front of us, and one that we need to seize as a united front. And I don't intend to turn it into a political football, but I do want to make sure that we keep the pressure up on the new government, of which I'm a member, to make sure that that becomes a reality. Thankfully, I do have a very good relationship with the new Minister of Health. We had a prior relationship before she was elected recently, and we had worked together in the past on different political endeavors. And because of that, I'm very confident that she will also be very interested in what's happening here. I know we've spoken about it personally, and I'm going to keep advocating for that, as well as in the legislature and in caucus, as I've spoken up on it multiple times. And I think it's very important that we note that there is that municipal buy-in. And I think I need to commend the mayor and the other mayors of West Niagara proper, sort of West Lincoln and Grimsby, for being very strong on this file, showing that we have a united front, that this is an issue we are determined to make a priority for this government as well. I have had meetings with the CEO of Hamilton Health Sciences, Rob McIsaac, a couple of different meetings, as well as with with ministry officials on ways we can make sure this is moving forward. And I have his assurance that this is at the top of the priority list for Hamilton Health Sciences, which is very exciting. I think it's fair to say that the biggest problem I have right now is that we don't have a definitive timeline. And I think we need to have a definitive timeline because it's very, very difficult to hold people accountable when they don't give you a timeline, when they say it'll come down the pipe. I think one of the requests, if I could be so bold, if you are meeting with the mayor or with the minister at AMO, would be to ask for a specific timeline. Even if that's longer than we want, I mean, it's better to have something that we can hold a government to account on, as opposed to having a sort of wide open space of good intentions. So that would be a recommendation. Long-term care beds are another area of healthcare that are obviously very important here in the West Niagara region, with soaring demographics that are a lot of people moving in, but also the natural inhabitants of this area for the last 50 years are now aging, and we're seeing quite a demographic shift as the baby boomers enter that bell curve, which is putting pressures on our system here, and our government is committed to building 30,000 new long-term care beds over the next 10 years, which I want to make sure we have a proper allocation of those beds here in the West Niagara region as well, and making sure that we're bringing that. As it pertains to cost of living, some of the things that we've talked about province-wide are going to have an impact here as well. I talked about scrapping cap and trade, reducing hydro rates by an additional 12%, reducing also gas prices. We really want to make sure that the small job creators here in not only Lincoln, but the rest of Ontario, as well as families and those who are working hard to get ahead, do have an easier go of it, that they have more money at the end of the day in their pockets for their families and for playing and living here in an area that, of course, with lots of tourism and culture, we recognize the importance of that increase in disposable income also for our local economies. So I think that will be a boon to our local economies. An area that obviously has major concern, I think, for us as well are the tariffs that are really taking a lot of the political attention at all levels of government. Right now, I've had multiple calls with business owners from here in Lincoln as well. I won't disclose those names right now publicly, but those who are saying we could lose hundreds of jobs here in Lincoln, here in Vineland, here in Beamsville, if these tariffs are not figured out in short order. So that's a major concern for me. That's really come to the fore throughout the campaign. We sort of saw it becoming a top issue, and our Premier Doug Ford has also said that he plans on doing a friendly tour of the top 19. So 19 out of the 50 U.S. states, Ontario is their #1 trading partner, not Canada. But just Ontario is the #1 trading partner of 19 U.S. states. So he plans on visiting with the governors of all those 19 U.S. states and making sure that NAFTA is top of mind, as it is for many of us here. When it comes to agriculture as well, I think we have a strong agricultural minister in Ernie Hardeman, who was a former minister in the Mike Harris government, has a wealth of experience at Queen's Park, understands ag, understands the importance of advanced ag as we move away from only traditional types of agriculture and into the agri-food and food processing, as well as some of the advances that are being made here and across the province. But a lot of what I'm planning on doing is, as I said before, listening to you. The way that I can effectively represent you is to hear what your concerns are, and this obviously is important to you as councillors, being very close to the front lines and seeing impacts of public policy from the provincial level. I want to help you receive the funds that you deserve for particular projects here in Lincoln or in the West Niagara, Greater West Niagara area. But I also hope to be a conduit of concerns that your constituents have that I can pass along to a premier, to cabinet, to caucus, and also to the entire Ontario legislature. I've always been very clear that I am not an expert in every area, and I believe that an important way to overcome a lack of experience is to be willing to listen. And so I come here as someone who is your servant, who works for you and for the 100,000 people that I have the great honor and privilege of representing. And I would love to hear what your concerns are. Where can I be of assistance? What are your top concerns? What are your priorities? And how can we work together? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. And those questions here, I'm going to start with Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Sam, thanks for being. I'm really pleased with the way you're talking about West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. There are huge amounts of money that are being invested in that building, but it is not a new build. And I think that's what our residents are looking for. If it's not a priority for you, is a new build a top priority? Is that what you are going to be driving for at that site?
Yes, absolutely. This is a stopgap measure, which, quite frankly, I find it disappointing that it's come to this place where we need $8 million just to fix the paint. And that's an unfortunate result of neglect by, again, multiple governments. I think we should not be, as grateful as I am for the grant, I think it's important that we obviously maintain the services that we do have. We need to see nothing less than a complete redevelopment and a new build at the same location. The demographics, the explosion of growth here in the West Niagara area, the particular focus of Hamilton Health Sciences in breaking up various campuses into specific areas of expertise, it's a natural fit into the Hamilton Health Sciences from that regard. And I think it's been very clear from conversations that I've had on tens of thousands of doors across the riding, people expect nothing less than a full redevelopment, and that's my commitment to fighting for that.
If I might, thanks for that, Sam. And I think what you said also about forcing the powers that be to set a definite timeline as to when this can happen, because it's just been pushed off the burner for so many years. It needs definite direction now and definite timeline to get this new build. So, thanks very much.
Absolutely. And on that note, I am in the process of actually writing letters to a variety of different ministers, aside from the letter I wrote to the Premier Designate with regards to specific areas of focus. And the letter that I'm in the process of writing to the new Minister of Health and Long-Term Care is divided between West Lincoln and the long-term care, but West Lincoln is front and center there. And I do want to also, on that note, say if there are other issues that you feel, obviously GO Train is a big issue, and we've talked briefly about irrigation as well. Let me know. And as I'm writing these letters, which should be out before the end of the week, to about 4 or 5 of the top ministers, I'm happy to see what I can do to include those areas of concern.
Thank you very much. Sam, I just want to add to your comments about West Lincoln Hospital. You're absolutely correct. For the last year and a bit, the 3 West Niagara mayors have been very, very strong. We've been attending meetings. I don't think we're the most popular people at those meetings. Certainly, I think your position on the neglect and the slow, delicate decline that has now become the serious issue that Councillor Benet was talking about tonight is absolutely where we're at, and action needs to be taken. Very good. I have Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mayor Easton. I'm glad you're in the process of writing these letters, because I have some fodder I hope to to have you add. Certainly, congratulations on your election, your re-election, and your appointment as the PA for the Ministry of Education. That's excellent. And I'll go right to education. And just want to ensure that your focus on the build of the new high school is in the top priority for you coming from West Niagara.
Yes, so that's still a discussion that is being had about the moratorium on schools. We've had discussions about what that looks like across the province right now, and I'm actually having an 8 a.m. meeting tomorrow with the Minister of Education, and I will be also asking for more particulars on that. This is still in sort of the first days, of course, but we've talked quite a bit about what rural school closures are doing to communities across Ontario, ones that are more rural than here. I mean, this is now semi-rural, it's semi-urban as well. But I think it's important to see, to make sure that we recognize there are some glitches that have been occurring as well within the school board side of things with the new build. So I'm looking forward to getting some more information on that and seeing what can be done.
Very good. In regards to healthcare, certainly there's efficiencies. Adding beds to the long-term care system is definitely a great option, but I'm concerned that a consultation of the frontline workers, I think that's a necessity in order to get a real picture of what goes on in the homes and how the efficiencies can be garnered in order to maybe, not have people ending up in those beds, more home care, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully that is also going to be a priority for you. And finally, last but not least for me, certainly the ag sector and stability of funding with regards to Vineland research and the investment in ag tech, as a primary focus, because we are in Lincoln here, a center of excellence for agriculture. And we live by that and we support that wholeheartedly, and we just need to make sure that we're, that's going to be a priority moving forward, because we've put our eggs in that basket, so to speak, and rightfully so.
Yeah, so if I could touch on first your point about consultation, I think you took the words from the mouth of the Premier himself. He's talked a lot about the importance of talking to frontline workers. That's absolutely a mantra. We ran on a platform for the people. We are a government for the people, and that means listening to the people. Otherwise it's no more than hyperbole. And I'm confident that that our government will be one that does sit down with frontline workers, that is not making decisions in downtown Toronto that have no bearing as soon as you walk out the door, but ones that make frontline workers' jobs or lives easier while providing more taxpayer dollars for frontline care and not sort of bloated bureaucracies. As it pertains to ag, I mean, I'm born and raised in the ag sector myself, spent years working in it, and anything I can do to advocate for ag here in Niagara or provincially is something that I think is incredibly important. If you look especially at the change in demographics with urban centers, there's so many people who have never been on a farm, that have never seen a real live cow, that have never, they don't understand what life is like north of Bloor. and the sad reality is that those of us who still have that experience in agriculture are going to need to speak up very loudly around the table, and I intend to do that.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Brunet and then Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sam, I wanted to echo the comments that have already been made. Congratulations on your re-election and your appointment as PA. We've talked a lot about what are my concerns. I like what I'm hearing from you, but we all know that during the election, now Premier Ford was around the province making lots of promises, and there's only so much money to go around. We all know that recently there's been a new hospital in Milton, there's been a new hospital in Oakville, and Joseph Brant gone through major expansion. I believe that Premier Ford was in Welland promising money towards that hospital. I believe he was also up in Brantford. This area, which has supported you and your PC party, I don't have to tell you, through a lot of the areas of Niagara, voted NDP. So this is certainly your opportunity to get to the plate. As you indicated, 15 of your 20 years were under a Liberal government. So we certainly need you there steering this ship. And, obviously I completely concur with your comment. And over the last 4 years, the meetings that I've gone to, and recently, I can tell you that there is growing and growing and growing concern about the sustainability of this hospital. And there's no doubt that every meeting I've been to recently in the last 6 months is indicating, even if we had the green light today, it's 7 to 10 years before we see a new hospital. So I completely agree with you, and I think that's paramount that we get some sort of commitment in terms of a time frame, and I hope that that we can work together on that. The GO expansion, it's something that this council and we've worked hard with Metrolinx to show a desire that we need transit in this area. We have a U-Link, as you know, in the area. We've been very successful in getting a GO bus stop here at the end of Lincoln Avenue, and we continue to demonstrate to Metrolinx our need for expansion. As you know, we're not on phase 1. St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and St. Catharines are on phase 1. But at some point during the election tour, I believe that Mr. Ford came down here and made a comment that maybe he wouldn't support the GO expansion to Niagara. I do believe within 48 hours there was a further comment regarding those. I wonder if you can elaborate on any discussions that you've had with the Premier about GO expansion to Niagara.
So, to be very blunt, Doug is not, or Premier Ford, he asked that we call him Doug, but I'll call him Premier Ford for the sake of proper etiquette, is not someone who necessarily speaks in the most politically palatable terms. And when I spoke with then leader Doug, Ford at the time of the comments, he was completely taken aback by the fact that those comments had been taken that way, and he expressed to me 100% certainty that the GO train is coming to Niagara. He's committed to it. Those clarifications at the time were needed because what he meant was that we want to make sure we have it coming in as cost effectively as possible. We don't want to be charging taxpayers more than we need to for transportation that we can get at a better price. Why would we want to spend more than necessary on a transportation system? But he's multiple times committed, both in the platform and in his subsequent visits to Niagara, to ensuring that the GO train comes to Niagara in the next 4 years as well.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. As some of the other councillors, commented, obviously this is a Centre for Agricultural Excellence, so, we want to continue to make sure that we get the support from that side of your government, and, we would appreciate any letters that you could be sending to the new Minister of Agriculture. You mentioned your support of long-term care beds, and that's something that we all desperately need. I'm sure you're very well aware of the recent announcement of the McNally Hospice expansion that will work in conjunction with Hamilton Health Sciences. And this is a fantastic facility, and we really need to see that expansion as well. So whatever you could do to help make sure that comes to fruition would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for coming.
Perfect. Palliative care has been an area that I've done my best to advocate for, and I'll continue to do that. And anything I can do to be of assistance in that regards, I will be there.
Thank you very much. Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mary Easton. I think a lot of my questions have been answered, but I just want to, I'll add my couple of questions that I have anyway. Thanks for coming out tonight, Sam. And I wanted to know what your thoughts are around affordable housing. We desperately need more affordable housing in Lincoln. We have huge wait lists. People are waiting years and years to get a one-bedroom apartment that they can afford. If you're a family with a couple of children, you're waiting beyond, I don't even know how many years, 7 to 10 years. Just some thoughts on how we can increase some affordable housing within the town of Lincoln. What we can do and what you can do to help us achieve that would be great.
So I don't like disappointing anybody, but I'll be very frank about the fact that I'm not completely aware of the affordable housing scenario here in Lincoln proper. I know broader Niagara crisis is in play, and that's something that's been spoken about multiple times during the campaign as well. I think there's sort of two philosophical approaches to that, and my approach as a conservative is that absolutely we need affordable housing. We need to ensure that there's adequate affordable housing, but we need to also ensure that affordable housing is not the last stop, that we're doing more to also open up the market and increase supply. And ultimately, a lot of the housing struggles that we're seeing are due to increased development charges, not necessarily here, but in governments across the GTA and the Golden Horseshoe. The average cost of a home, 22% of the cost of a home, a new build is in regulatory costs or that burden. So what we want to do is make sure we're cutting red tape, getting back to basics and cutting the wait times. You hear about people who it takes 4 years to build a new subdivision, 6 years to build a new subdivision. I'm not saying in this municipality, but those are broader areas across the issues across the province that are having an impact on the affordability of housing. When it comes to affordable housing specifically, that is a discussion that I've heard being brought up at the region as well, and I would look to hear what their perspective is on that, and listen to even yourself as someone who may have good ideas in this regards. I am not an expert in affordable housing, but I'd be happy to sit down and chat with you about anything that I can do to advocate for what you believe would improve the situation.
Absolutely, I think that would be good. There are some stats specific to Lincoln, and there definitely is a need here. So maybe we could do that. I would appreciate that. Moving on, just the long-term care, the promise of 30,000 beds. That's something I'm really happy to hear that you really are behind that, because we definitely need some beds, and we need a lot of beds.
Yeah.
And it's just increasing. Just hoping we can get some local for our area would be great. Like 30,000 sounds like a lot, but when it's spread across the province, it's not very many.
Yeah, and I understand that, and that's even, I know Pelham has been lobbying very hard on long-term care beds, and I believe they're getting a new retirement community there as well. And I would say that there should definitely be a strong look at what can be done in this community specifically. I think even more so is West Lincoln, where there is a huge lack of long-term care beds up the mountain as well, which all kind of falls into the same West Niagara catchment area in a way. I mean, I live in Camden, but I do half the things in Smithville and half the things in Beamsville, right? That's a lot of this area. So what's good for West Lincoln is good for Lincoln, which is good for Grimsby. I think there needs to be, I would say, a coherent push from also the mayors on this issue as well, if that's at all possible. Something to think about, that presentation of the West Niagara unit as an area where more long-term care beds are needed. It's also a cost savings measure. It's an efficiency. It really is. The amount of people who are in alternative level care that cost taxpayers, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 an evening or a night, and they don't want to be there, right? People don't want to be there, but they're stuck in hallways, they're stuck in medicine cabinets because of this. It's shameful, and we're going to change that.
I think you make a really good point. We need to work together. If we look at West Niagara, if we're all pulling together, it's still our catchment area. It's still, same with the affordable housing as well. If we can work together in a bigger piece, makes sense. One other question I had just around the legalization of cannabis that is coming in October. And just wondering what your thoughts are around that, and also the we've had a real surplus of new places opening to grow cannabis and the impact on neighbors and the community. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I actually held a roundtable on this very issue. That would have been last fall now. Time goes quickly. Last fall, and there was definitely varying levels of concern as well as enthusiasm from those at that roundtable, and from interactions I've had in the community and heard from everyone from neighbors to small business owners. It's clear that the market needs to be heavily regulated, and that municipalities need to be given the powers to control a lot of the concerns around even security of the premises and odor emissions and those types of permits. I know there's been concerns expressed in West Lincoln about a facility that's built on, it's deemed agricultural, so it's built on agricultural land, but it's right behind Caister Center proper, Caisterville. So it's all these houses that are, I know on 15th Street, you have a problem as well. I know I've had some constituents reach out to me from that area. I think this is going to be, this is going to have to be something that is talked about in more detail with the minister responsible for that file. I don't have a particular expertise in that area, but I would be happy to try pelham representation from Niagara at those sorts of policy discussion roundtables, because I think we are seeing a huge growth. Balfour in Pelham, West Lincoln, Lincoln, St. David's, you name it. There's a lot of not even medical, but recreational cannabis being grown here. And if we're not given the tools, and if municipalities aren't given the tools, that can create a headache. So, yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Sam.
And Councillor Pacioretty.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Sam, just like to echo my fellow councillors, your congratulations on your re-election and appointment as PA. I've got a couple things that maybe some of the others haven't touched on, but want to just go back to a couple of the ones that they had stressed, just to, give you a little more added emphasis, I guess. West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, Councillor Brunet is our representative on there, speaks passionately about it. I remember over 20 years ago providing the food to the candlelight vigil that they had at Grimsby Secondary School. It's just too long. Sitting, at Canada Day and talking to one of the hospital board members that there's some of the services now that they can't do because of the changes in cleaning protocols. Windsor, Oakville, Milton have all jumped the queue and have had hospitals built while we continue to wait. The times, we can't wait anymore. So I know that you're aware of that, so hopefully you can raise the flag for us. And like you said, we will ask at AMO for a time commitment, because I think that's critical. GO Train, looking at hopefully building the stations concurrently. Why we have to do them separately? Because we need them here for the Canada Summer Games. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Councillor Thompson, I think, mentioned ULink, or Councillor Brunet. We're already getting our internal house in order to get the people around, but we need that link. You spoke about gas prices. Premier Ford had said the 10-cent reduction in gas price. Looking forward to that, but also the end of weekend price gouging, long weekend price gouging. Today, gas $1.38.9 in St. Catharines, $1.29.9 in Lincoln, $1.16.5 in Hagersville. Why? And it went up before the weekend. We're a rubber tire destination. Talked about staycations and the tariffs and keeping people at home. Then this should be, if not the number one, the second priority to address, that it has to go away, because we're built on tourism. People will rethink even driving an hour or two at gas $1.40 a liter. It's just, it doesn't make any sense when gasoline is $75 a barrel, and this is future pricing, should be 75 cents a liter, not double that. We talk about, and at AMO, we've talked about extension of services into the rural community. We talk about gas, we talk about internet, but what I'd like you to talk to the government about is extension of services, less than 100 meters to serve the ag community. We've got a new medicinal marijuana plant opening, doesn't have municipal water. An extension of 90 meters would help that. And there's not going to be any subdivisions built. This is, we're a Center for Agricultural Excellence. We need to walk that walk, and we need your help to be able to do that. And in part and parcel of that is when we went on our trade mission to China, met a lot of industrialists that, came to us and said, we want to build Blue Mountain in your town. But right now it's not feasible because there's a limit of rooms that you can build in the ag setting. Golf courses can be self-sustaining units. I think of someone like the Good Earth. that bringing those people from Toronto here to see the difference between a soya bean and a stalk of corn, that when the bird bangers are going off, they're not being shot at, but have that opportunity to go and pick that bounty that we have, turn it into something by staying overnight on a farm setting, maybe getting up, maybe feeding the cows, feeding the chickens, doing whatever it is, but then taking that home. Because, fruit wasn't created in the grocery store. So something like that, I really look to. And one of the other ones I want to give Mr. Ford some props on was there was a hydro dividend that the previous government was just putting into general coffers that he's committed to taking and driving down the hydro rate. So love you to keep doing that. And I think you got a lot of work ahead, but you know what? We're here. We're behind you. You need anything, just ask.
Love it. Thank you, JD. And I think what you've really done is encapsulated as well what I hope to be the relationship going forward, where listen, no matter which government, there's going to be policy decisions that are made that I might personally disagree with, that perhaps particular councillor members might disagree with, but on a lot of these local issues, I think it's going to be important that we work together as a unified front. There's no better way for a minister to turn down a proposition than to say, well, like your people in the area can't even figure out what they're supporting. This mayor says one thing, that one says another one. So I don't know, man. Like, you're going to have to hold off on that. And I think what you've encapsulated is a spirit of collaboration that I hope to see continue going forward. So it's a lot of hard work, but I've never been scared of hard work, as I'm sure you know. And I look forward to getting to work and making sure we get some good things done.
Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Sam. Certainly, we have very good staff here at the town who will be preparing the briefing notes for AMO and for you, and I look forward to sitting down with you to bring you up to date on all these issues. I think we've really covered the waterfront on all the issues that have been hanging over our heads for maybe the last 3 years, 3.5 years. So thank you very much, Sam. We're proud of your representation, and we wish you all the best, and we'll certainly be where we need to be and have your back as well. So
Perfect. Well, I'm heading to Toronto now, so I'll get to work.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
And councillors, I have a motion moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Timmers that the delegation be received. Your pleasure on the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. There is no correspondence this evening. We'll move on to the reports, and we'll begin with my apologies. Councillor Thompson.
Madam Mayor, sorry about the interruption. I'd like to reiterate a declaration of interest with regards to the Economic Development Committee minutes adoption this evening.
All right, thank you very much. And I have a copy of that, and it's in the clerk's hands. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we will move to the Committee of the Whole Economic Development minutes of June the 20th, 2018. And in Councillor McPherson's absence, Councillor Pachariva, would you care to provide highlights to the meeting?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. The following are highlights regarding the Town of Lincoln Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole Economic Development meeting, which was held on June 20th, 2018. The meeting commenced with 3 delegations. The first one was from Brian Purdy, who's the General Manager of the Niagara Gateway Information Center, who provided a presentation and video on visitor advertising resources. They are supported solely by advertising and have partnered with the RTO and the Niagara region. The center attracts visitors from all over the world, and they're looking for the Town of Lincoln to partner with them in some way, shape, or form. Adam Durant from the Niagara Workforce Planning Board presented a Lincoln update on local trends in job demand, tourism, and agriculture. And then John Hack and Al Kent from Sierra Planning and Management presented a project update on the Town of Lincoln's economic development strategy, including employment lands analysis and employment lands and rural area community improvement plans. Following that, committee then dealt with the following staff reports, which were carried: AD 1807 Team Niagara update, AD 1808 Economic Development Strategy update, and AD 1809, and this is the one that the Deputy Mayor expressed an interest on, the Magic Wine Bus. Committee moved into closed session for a report regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local boards as it pertains to a review of surplus town-owned lands. Committee wrapped up at 10:20 p.m. Full details regarding the meeting can be found in the agenda and minutes published on the town's website, lincoln.ca.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. And Councillor Panchariva, you are front and center for the highlights of the Finance and Administration Committee minutes of June 25th, if you will.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just want to, again, reiterate my thanks to committee members that evening. That was the day of the accident on the QEW, which created probably a 2-hour backup. Thanks to my geographical knowledge and a little tip from Mr. Kirkopoulos on how to circumvent the upper regions of Hamilton and Binbrook, I was able to get here at 7:08. So the meeting started at 7:10. And these are the highlights from that meeting, Finance and Administration, which was held on June 25th. Committee received 4 staff reports, which were carried as follows. Report TR 18-14, an asset management planning update. Report TR 18-15, the Helen E. Whipple Trust Fund. Report TR 18-16, the 2017 investment report. And finally, report TR 18-17, the redundant dispatch phase 5 update. Meeting wrapped up at 7:21. Full details regarding this meeting can be found in the agenda and minutes on the town's website, lincoln.ca.
Thank you very much. And I have a motion, council members, moved by Councillor Panchariva and seconded by Councillor McMillan, that the minutes of the June 25th, 2018 Finance and Administration Committee be adopted as circulated. Your pleasure on the motion. We have no confirmation of compliance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, and we have no bylaws this evening. Are there any councillor inquiries? There being none, are there any notices of motion? Are there any announcements? Councillor.
Announcement, Madam Mayor, but in the agenda that we approved, there is an item number 6, a civic recognition. Is that to come, or is it?
It's been postponed for this evening.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
All right.
thank you. Anything else? There's a lot of hand movements going on my right and my left, and so I'm waiting for some instructions from either the clerk or the CAO. Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I did, so you're right, there are some hand movements going back and forth with the clerk and I. The civic recognition has been moved to July 16th, but I did say to Julie, maybe I'll give a little bit of a teaser this evening, and then we can do those, that official recognition and have those individual groups in here to receive their recognition. So members of council may recall that when I first began, following my first year here, that we launched what we called, and the acronym was CAFE, our CAFE Awards, which really are corporate awards for excellence, and so that was the acronym. And we put those in place to identify and recognize individuals and or teams who, through their service, dedication, and exceptional performance, have excelled in the delivery of municipal services to the residents of our community, and who embody principles around customer service, leadership, team effectiveness, innovation, and creativity. So this year's CAO Award of Excellence is Laurie Laird, and I don't have to speak as to why it is Laurie. I can share that with you and speak in more depth to what Laurie has done and why she was nominated on the 16th. And our Customer Service and Spirit Award winners are environmental services, our water, wastewater team. So once again, on July 16th, I can speak more in depth as to Laurie, as well as the individuals of our water and wastewater operations group, and highlight what they did to receive those awards. So a little bit of a teaser for folks, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. So I'll ask again, any other announcements? There being none, we do not have any closed session items this evening. I have a motion moved by Councillor McMillan and seconded by Councillor Pachariva that leave be given to introduce the following bylaw, number 2018-55, to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by council resolution. Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Thompson that bylaw number 2018-55 read a first time be now read a second and third time and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. The pleasure on the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, staff. Ladies and gentlemen, there being no further business, the agenda and business of council having been completed as circulated and published, I call this meeting adjourned.